So it's going to jump right in here. And I actually don't think I have this in the notes here, but there's a massive principle that, as we're kind of realigning ourselves, I think we really want to make sure that we're getting the first things first. I mean, there's so many concepts to really illustrate what we're all about and what we stand for, as we're kind of like dismantling sort of oppressive religious structures and having a great awakening. And we want to make sure that we make the first things first, which would be, what did Jesus say was first, right? Christ consciousness, we're going to have Christ's words, concepts are paramount here. And so there's a principle, First John talks about like, we love him and others because he first loved us, right? And so that's a really important principle that kind of opens up here. They ask Jesus, so what's the greatest commandments, And he's not negating all the other commandments, but he's giving the resource by which to like accomplish them, right? So he's saying, obviously, do not murder and things like that are still in effect. But he's saying, like, he's raising the bar and he's giving a standard, but he's also equipping. And he's saying, love the Lord with all your heart, all your soul, all your mind. They're like testing him. He's saying, what's the greatest commandment of all of them? Expecting him to say some, it could be anything, I mean, not anything, but anything from the law, the prophets, the Moses, the 10 Commandments, or would be, something like that. And he's saying, and he does highlight for something that Moses said, which was from Deuteronomy, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, all of your soul, and all your mind. So it's essentially wholeheartedness, right? And it's wholeheartedness towards God. But again, what's kind of like sneaky missing here, and like you have to catch this is really big. When First John writes, John writes in First John, yeah, but it starts with his love. You've got to fuel your heart with his love, and then it propels that back to him and next to other people. And so there's, a million words have been written about codependency and people pleasing and everybody giving to get, wanting to get love. So they give love or trying to do X, Y, and Z, just trying to get love from other people, and it's, manipulation, this spell work, that love spell, whatever it is. And it's just like, you want to be connected to source. That's what the narcissist can't do. That's what the matrix can't do, is stand before him, receive his love, feed their heart on his love. And then you're equipped to do that. It's the wise ones that have the oil in Matthew 25. And that's friendship with God. That's something you can't give to somebody else when they need it. You can be a pretty good advertisement for it, and you can be a target for it so that they can try to drain you energetically. Feel better about themselves for taking you out, but and they can kind of manifest up your energy and things like that. But there's this divine invitation to stand fully and align in that energetic place of his spiritual quality, that essence here of being one who is loved and then therefore loves. Forgiven much, loves much. And so, and again, it's a fierce love. I mean, this is the same love that, for the love of his children in Israel, the oppressed, whips the table over, right? And that's that call to understand, Jeremiah, Hosea, like in the Old Testament prophets. No, he's a jealous God. He's jealous for his people, for the widow and for the orphan, for those who are oppressed. He whips out the structures. He wakes from the matrix and whips those things over. And it's not out of his own zeal for my house that's consumed me, right? And that's that desire of his heart to say, this is mine. And if you're taken my heart and my glory and you've monetized it in an oppressive way. And so people like the money changers, right? Whose tables did he whip over? But those who were, you got to have this kind of currency. You got to have this kind of market of the beast. You got to do this. You got to say that this person, the Pharisees, are kind of your God, basically. These matrix owners, these handlers. You have to bow, compromise, and come through this little, a limbo thing to get under there and pay them religious figures their due. And so he's calling us to fiercely and without any trace of cowardice, importantly, fueled by his love and love for him and his people, to be these liberators, these Moses and so it's wholeheartedness to live fully to God and live in the power of divine sovereignty. Right. And so the matrix is just like, that seems like a lot of work. We'll be chosen, but we'll just make our own rules. And it's just like, you can see everybody's like, well, don't cross me. Well, don't cross me. Well, my ancestor's this and my ancestor's that. And I've got this protection. It's just like, y'all are divided in a matter of moments. Like, just building a gold calf out here, and it's just like, yeah. And I'm just, I mean, I say it tenderly, just like it really is like, it's there needs to be unity among us, because the moment you disagree with somebody, you're ready to, cast them out of the kingdom or something like that. And it's we're pressing forward. There's going to be growing pains and like lining up, and we get in unity with spirit, and that brings us into divine unity. It isn't something that we're like necessarily, needing to go to some sort of like dark place with or whatever. There's an element of just like praying for those and like bearing them along, because it's a birthing people. There's going to be an influx of those who come in and that are going to be brand new and these kind of things. It isn't just going to be the old guard. And so learning to have patience, that's part of he was patient with us coming up one time. So in that kind of places where we're loving it, but like we are going to get burnt out and ready to throw everybody out of the kingdom, because if we don't first be fueled by his love, then how are we going to have patience and love? Patience was an expression of that. So I think it's very tribalistic. And well, I'm only, it's only people who look like me and talk like me and sound like me, and everybody else is probably just wrong. There's such a spirit of that we're chosen. But I like it at the same time too, because there is an element of like, well, who's doing the choosing, and is there not a cause? Well, for what purpose were we chose, kind of thing. So it's not a call to like half-heartedness or anything like that. It is a call to wholeness. That sincerity. I hate to use the word radical, because that can be kind of put us in a weird place, but there's an element of radical of devotion, of extravagant devotion, like Mary of Bethany, at the feet of the Lord there, or there's a couple of Marys that kind of have that element there. So, because it's who he is, and the more that we behold him, God became a man. God, the transcendent, infinite, beyond our universe, God takes on a body. It's like, how, what, it's the creator of all. And so there are no boundaries with him, that kind of thing. Like he completely gave himself. And I don't mean boundaries in the way that we kind of like use that word. I mean, there are boundaries. Obviously, he's a God of rule and order, and there's a protocol here. But he also became a blazing fire. And before Moses, there's I don't know. But there's a call too to taste and see that the Lord is good, right? There's to get into a little bit of this realm, see what the fire's like versus the lukewarm, because there's like a river that you can just jump in and experience, and then at the shores are all these bulldogs barking at everybody trying to jump in that river, and they doing it right and all these things like that or whatever, which there's an element of like, there are rules for sure, but everybody knows them. But the point is, here's what's the greatest rule of all is, where's our priorities at? Because that's what the second, we're so focused on that second one without the fuel or the fire to do the first one. Or people skip the first one, and the implied one in 1 John of like, we love him because he first loved us, it's skipped too. And so it's kind of like, it's a little tricky. You got to put it all together. But there's a lot of people that do. We fill our hearts with his love. We love him back. And then once we're alignment with loving him back, one of the ways we express that love is first to him, which is ministry through prayer. The Melchizedek, ministry, like the priests in the Old Testament, the incense that they would light, that smoke that went up to him. We're pouring one out of our heart, our devotion, our language. We're that John 5 thing we always talk about, pouring out of our devotion and speaking to him, speaking his word back to him, that conversation, that ongoing dialogue, and that expression of I love you in our spirit, that then is expressed into I love you, therefore I'm going to obey you in this way. You're calling me to do this, I'm doing it for you. These person is knowing, but I'm going to love them with that. I'm going to show them forgiveness, these things. Because our communion with him must become a divine, consuming fire of alignment and divine ecstasy, which is that experience of his love back. So it's the divine, it's like, oh, that's a nice thing to do, experience the river and the fire and the love of God. It's actually really important. It's just like that, what John Piper called it, the dangerous duty of delight. That there's a responsibility to enter in And Jesus is like, yeah, it's nice, it's awesome. You know what? You got to do it, because he's like, if you don't enter in, all the people that are leading and following behind you, they aren't going to enter in, and then that's judgment on you. And it's just like, I've seen visions and heard, I mean, I've read about people's visions and heard things of so many people being warned about, like, it's, don't get so excited that it becomes trivial. Take it real seriously, because like he made it awesome so that we would be addicted to it. But what is the one thing that Satan wants to do is give you something counterfeit, something secondary. I mean, people's spouses can even be something that an idol before the Lord. Anything can be an idol when it's like you're not putting him in his first place. So why is he taking this so jealously and so seriously? You made it first. Keep him on the throne of your heart. Do all things through him with your eyes on him. And the danger zone is when you take his eyes off, because then that's when you're spiritually bored and vulnerable. So you got one of the great monks, saints, an article of those, through the creed, those person loves less because she is less. She loves with her whole being. And in this place, nothing is lacking where everything is given. So there's just something about that last little 2% we give up and become 100% give it over to the Lord. And then he's releasing the reserve, and not that you sacrifice everything necessarily. It's a wholehearted devotion to whatever he's saying and leading. Yes to that, not resistance and like, oh, you're holding on to that thing, and then you give it to him and he release it. And then it's like, first of all, you're connected and it feels great. Second of all, they kind of like, oh yeah, my perspective has just become adjusted, and not only will you give me back that in a different way or same way times 10, but it's like, it was an expression of like what was becoming an idol or what was causing, that disconnect. So he's not seeking just perfection, but like full conscious and intentional alignment with his will. Keep me in the center of your whirlwind. It was old chorus. I think it's the Ezekiel inspired there. Like that's the eye of the storm. That's a safe place to be, and that's looking at his eyes, and relating to people with their eyes on him. And kind of, we used to say relating to people, and just like looking at the other people, in their eyes. It's almost like relate to them by the Spirit, is what the scripture actually says. So it's kind of behold in the Spirit, but like our eyes are kind of mostly on him, because it's easy to get caught up in someone else's swirl, and then you become followers of men instead of women, or women instead of him, all these things like that. I kind of said that wrong, but you know what I mean, like following people instead of him. So worshiping the creation instead of the creator. We're created to worship and behold him, and on that, Revelation 4 and 5, see a glass, jasper, sardius, crystal-like glow, that's before the throne there, that he's enthroned on our heart. So I'm going to pause it there and come back.